I'm dressed up a little snazzy today because I'm going to be seeing One Battle After Another again, but this time in 70mm. Not 70mm IMAX, since I don't live in California or New York or wherever. Plus, I think wearing this will give me some confidence for this review. Editor's note, I may or may not leave that in. What's up, guys? It's your boy Chrysalis here, and today is day 6 of Paul Thomas Anderson week. That's right, this whole week we've been talking about all things Paul Thomas Anderson, given that he has a new movie coming out, and it is the subject of this review. We are going to be tackling Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. This is the latest feature-length film from Los Angeles director Paul Thomas Anderson. He also has done quite a bit of screenwriting, more so specifically for his own films, as well as a little bit of cinematography in there, also more or less for his own films. And, well, you get the idea. He also produces his own films as well. This guy's kind of an anomaly in the Hollywood machine. He's not really one of those directors that makes a smash hit movie, like, ever. As I mentioned in my video about his relationship with the box office, he's only ever had 2 movies that broke even, and that's Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood. And arguably, both of those may have been just because it's award season and a lot of the marketing just hinged on that. Although it is pretty nice to think that it was just a really good year for Paul Thomas Anderson for both years in terms of the box office, because it was just the latest craze about the 2.5-hour long epic about an oil baron. One could only hope that was the thing in 2007. But yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson is, like, in so many ways, like an anti-commercial director. In terms of commercial success, he hasn't really gotten a whole lot of return from his movies from what I can just look at from a glance. But in terms of just critical acclaim, he gets a lot of it. And after 30 years of making films, a lot of directors would just put out what could be considered their best film and maybe a few other good movies here and there, and just never quite hit the mark ever since. Or maybe they just flounder about and just make movies because they can, or because they just want a paycheck. Not Paul Thomas Anderson. He is, again, an anomaly, because it just feels like that he just keeps getting better and better, or just at least stranger. What I do want to focus more on is the fact that with One Battle After Another, it's his first movie that is set in the present day since Punch Drunk Love. Yeah, this Punch Drunk Love, the one I covered in my Criterion series, which I will link in the description. Pre There Will Be Blood, he made quite a few movies that took place in the present day, namely Hard 8, Magnolia, which, fantastic film, and Punch Drunk Love. And all of them are definitely unique in their approach to their respective genres, where it's with Punch Drunk Love, which is a romantic comedy about a guy that is in trouble with some scammers and he just finds the love of his life one day. And Magnolia, which is this immaculately made and dense psychological drama following just an ensemble cast of characters. At the time, the only period piece that he put out was Boogie Nights, which definitely had a lot to say about America's reputation with the concept of art versus money. The ever Sisyphus boulder that is the commercial success of an artist versus an artist's critical success. And thinking about that now, it seems like Paul Thomas Anderson was just able to avoid having to make that decision with cognitive dissonance. He has chosen the type of film that he wanted to make each and every time for the last, 30 years or so, which is super commendable, and I hope he continues to do that. So when There Will Be Blood came out, and it ended up being his most critically acclaimed film up until a certain point, he ended up putting out period piece after period piece after period piece since then with The Master, Inherent Vice, which a Thomas Pynchon adaptation similar to One Battle After Another, Licorice Pizza, and Phantom Thread. And it just felt like that since he just found his own niche in doing stories like that, a logical conclusion would be to infer that that's all he's going to make. And that's all he's going to be because that's what he seems the most comfortable with making. So enter One Battle After Another, which is unusual for a lot of reasons. Again, it's a non-period piece. It takes place during the present day, raids of sanctuary cities, iPhones and all. And it's an action movie. It's an action thriller kind of movie. A perfect marriage between the two, I might add. And let me just say, I have been living and breathing Paul Thomas Anderson's work, trying to prep for this movie in particular for the last month or so. I've watched everything from his low-budget crime drama Hard Eight. I've watched his Thomas Pynchon adaptation Inherent Vice. That's more of a crime noir film. I watched Phantom Thread. That is a 1950s-ish romantic film about a guy that makes dresses. And I watched Licorice Pizza, which is a coming-of-age, kind of sort of romantic comedy in a way. And throughout the last 9 films of his that I watched, there was nothing to suggest that he would be interested in a film like this. Nothing to suggest that making a movie like this would exist within his repertoire. Like, imagine having only watched, like, Phantom Thread and There Will Be Blood and Magnolia, like me, for one period of time, and then sitting down and watching in One Battle After Another, just completely confused, like, what? Is this the same guy? And despite Paul Thomas Anderson not really being a logically and logistically wise investment in terms of just getting your money back with his movies, when you invest a decent budget into his work, you get something really interesting in return, and definitely not the same thing he made twice in a row. So I can only assume that that was Warner Brothers' logic in giving him $140 million to make this movie. I mean, hey, I'm not complaining. The movie still got made, so there you go. And it's a great thing that this movie got made, because not only is it one of the best films of the year, but it's probably the best film of the year, and may go down as easily one of the best films of the decade, if not potentially the best movie of the decade. I think because of how immaculately written his narrative is, as well as just how carefully put together its setting, its themes are, and how they both end up enhancing each other instead of one overwhelming the other, you end up with one of the best action films in a long time. But I mean, it can be argued that it's not necessarily an action film. It could just be a thriller film, but even then, by action film standards, there's a lot in here that is just so impeccably well done. Everything you would expect from a Paul Thomas Anderson in terms of his signature, just directing style, is there in spades. Not just the whole, I have this camera on you and I'm going to follow you for a solid 30 seconds with no cuts or edits. That is definitely still in the film, and it definitely complements the film's tone incredibly well. Its themes about just America, because Paul Thomas Anderson's films are definitely American in tone. And what I mean by that is, on one hand, One Battle After Another has a lot of themes about freedom, hope, family, equality, whereas it also has a lot of themes about obsession, racism, sexualization. And you wouldn't really expect an action movie in this day and age to come with that, for sure. Not only that, but our principal main character, at least from my perspective anyway, is not this gung-ho soldier, John Wick-esque white guy who is a one-man army and he is called upon to be the ultimate badass in the time of need. No, our main character is a mixed race teenager that's just trying to evade and survive this racist white nationalist fellow by the name of Stephen J. Lockjaw. And in the meantime, Leonardo DiCaprio as Bob Ferguson, just in a intoxicated state with drugs and alcohol, is trying to figure out where she is and to make sure that she's safe. It's a wild movie and not really a plot or a narrative that you would expect many films to tackle, nor would you expect them to tackle just what's occurring in the world. Because I don't know if you've looked out the window lately, even if this is a dramatization of events, it's happening right now. And Paul Thomas Anderson wants you to be very aware of it, despite how woke you think it is. And let me address the anti-woke crowd for a second. Two things. One, just because it's woke doesn't mean it's bad. All woke is just the awareness that the United States of America, in the past, in the present, and continuing in the future, is disenfranchising and discriminating against the non-white American. And if you don't think that's happening now, well, you're blissfully ignorant or just stupid. And two, it is very important that things like this should be made, because not only should art reflect the values and the interests of the artist, but art more or less has a responsibility to convey to the audience what is their point of view on what's happening now. And it's not going to always be a masterpiece, but it's also not going to be terrible either. So if you're someone that just sees things like this and think to yourself, well, I'm not watching it because it's super political, blah, 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 I implore you to expand your worldview, like, immediately. But anyway, yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson does a fantastic job in terms of writing, which, by the way, he's apparently been working on the script for 2 decades. Like, imagine that. Making There Will Be Blood, The Master, Phantom Thread, and all those other movies, and also simultaneously just fine-tuning and writing this script. And the effort definitely shows, considering how just packed like sardines a lot of the quality and the themes and everything is just in this one script. Everything from character arcs, everything from the setting, our protagonist, our antagonist, especially our antagonist, holy hell, conveyed just masterfully well by actor Sean Penn. Sean Penn's performance in the movie, in my opinion, joins the pantheon of Heath Ledger's Joker, Javier Bardem's Antar Chigurh, and so on and so forth. He is just that fucking good in the movie. And not only is he just that good in the movie, he just does a phenomenal job at being the embodiment, the personification of all that is wrong and just evil with the government and the fascist state of America. He is a character that sexualizes black women. He only sees them as pieces of meat. He is someone that, through his obsession with wanting to elevate his status as a white nationalist, doesn't understand that the white nationalists are trying to just kill him. He is bullish. He is unintelligent. He is everything you would imagine like someone that believes what he does to be. And there's no complexity about it. Which, by the way, spoiler alert, if you haven't looked at the description of the video or the title of the video, this is your warning from here on in to click off this video if you don't want to be spoiled. Which made him getting just old yellered in the end by the society that he was trying to join just so fascinating. And especially when they just threw him in the incinerator like trash. So I'm just going to leave this here real quick because I'm pretty sure I neglected to mention this in the review. But it is a signature of a lot of Thomas Pynchon's work, from what I understand, since I haven't read any of his books, unfortunately, that plots as well as just characters have all these like ridiculous names that make you chuckle and everything. Like, for example, like the white supremacist group is called the Christmas Adventurers Club. And from what I've read, there's like a lot of different interpretations as to why they're called that. But even then, their whole shtick being Christmas themed is just so fucking funny and so fucking stupid that it makes you realize how just ridiculous and inferior the white supremacists actually are. Like the whole notion of like the Klan and the Nazis and everything else is that they're supposed to be this bullish, unmovable, and just intimidating force, and really they're just fucking stupid. Which also explains why you have names like Stephen J. Lockjaw. And I think someone has like the name Toe Jam, like Sergeant Toe Jam in the movie, which, yeah, like it lends to its satirical tone, and it lends to, again, how non-serious these racists are, despite themselves taking themselves seriously. On the subject of acting in this movie, the cast is just phenomenal. Like even minor characters like Deandra, played by Regina Hall. Regina Hall just does a phenomenal job with what little screen time she has as this concerned member of the French 75. I just wish they put her in the movie more. And I can honestly say the same about Benicio del Toro, even though I think he had a fair amount of screen time as Sensei Sergio. Benicio del Toro in the film is just so damn cool as a cucumber throughout the entire time that all of his lines just end up being so infectious. You know what freedom is? No fear, just like Tom fucking Cruise. Courage, Bob. Courage. 8:15! A few small beers. But I do want to focus more on, say, Teyana Taylor, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Chase Infinity. Teyana Taylor plays Perfidia Beverly Hills, who is again a member of the French 75 and is Bob slash Pat, who is played by Leonardo DiCaprio's partner. Also, important thing to note, or as a reminder, that technically Bob Ferguson and Willa Ferguson's names are Pat Calhoun and Charlene Calhoun, but they had to assume another identity in order to like avoid detection. But I bring this up specifically not just as like clarification as to the who's who in the movie, but also because it lends to this idea that I think Paul Thomas Anderson wanted to sneakily enforce, is that in America and just society as a whole, you can be whoever you want to be. You don't have to continue to be this revolutionary or just what have you. You can just leave it all behind and have a new identity if you want, which I guess in its own way is also simultaneously just pro transgender, which is cool to see. The fact that the way that you were coming up or the way that you were doesn't have to be the way you will always be. And she is only in the movie for the beginning and then disappears after betraying the French 75 to save her own tail. And in my opinion, like, that's fine. I think her screen time was appropriate. And it was poetic that her best acting in the film, in my humble opinion, was when she was narrating the letter that Chase Infinity's character Willa reads at the very end of the movie. But again, with what little screen time that Teyana Taylor was given, it's just so immaculately well acted. And of course, you've got Chase Infinity, which really badass name, by the way, who plays Willa Ferguson, who's Bob's daughter. I mean, I'm spoiling anyway. He's not really Bob's daughter. He's Stephen Lockjaw's daughter, but he may as well be Bob's daughter. And DiCaprio delivers, in my humble opinion, his best performance since The Wolf of Wall Street. Probably the only character in the film where you actually see just the dimensions of him just ebb and flow and fade as we go from the pre-time skip to the post-time skip, where he's this guy that is just hopeful about the revolution, making all these explosives, and then post-time skip, he's a washed-out dude that does drugs and drinks and is just kind of just coasting by while just trying to take care of his daughter simultaneously from the military and the powers that be that want to just jail them both, despite Willow not really doing any of the crime in particular. And his performance is so over the top, especially the whole scene where all he's trying to do is get the rendezvous point to be able to find his daughter, and he's just struggling to figure out what the password is. It was so funny, he had to call the guy's supervisor in order to like get shit done. Like, holy fuck. But again, like, between just his crashing out while he's high and just the scenes you get where he's serious and is just, again, a concerned father, you just see so much multi-dimensional layers to DiCaprio's performance that, honestly, it may be my favorite performance of the movie. And then, of course, you have, again, Chase Infinity, who is just Hollywood agents. Watch this movie, watch Chase Infinity, sign her in everything immediately. Her face acting is just so great, and just what she's able to do on the screen is just phenomenal. And this is her first role in a movie. Imagine where her career is going to go from here. So yeah, the cast just does a phenomenal job at enhancing the script that Paul Thomas Anderson just laid out for them, as well as just everything else about the movie. Doing the musical score once again for I would assume a fifth or sixth time, is Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead. And I am very familiar with Mr. Greenwood from Radiohead. Radiohead's my favorite band. And the score, like with the movie itself, has a lot of just range to it. There's moments that are basically the calm before the storm with some Spanish guitar and some just really eerie string here and there. And I really love the little melody that plays between the truss devices. That's really cool. And if you ever get the chance to listen to the soundtrack, the track where the truss device plays is just one of my favorite tracks on there. But also has music set for just chase scenes and just, again, the whole scene where DiCaprio's trying to get the rendezvous point. The track that plays during the chase scene, like the chase scene, which I'll get to in a minute. Also, I don't know if I mentioned the car chase scene or not in this review, so if I did, I'm not going to put this in, but it's just so well done. It's like the climactic car chase where Willa is on the run after escaping from these like trafficking mercenary types or what have you, and she's in the car just trying to get away from that situation. Right behind her is one of the white supremacists that are trying to kill her. Also, say hello to my cat, or my parents' cat rather. Yeah, and she's going up and down these hills in a one-lane car chase, and it's just so immaculately well done. And it just gets better when you see off in the distance there's Bob right behind the guy that's trying to kill her, trying to chase him down. And yeah, I love the hell out of that car chase scene. It's probably the best car chase scene that I've seen in a long time. The only one that really tops it is the French Connection with Gene Hackman chasing after the train in that car. It's just immaculately well done. Reminds me a lot of Burn the Witch from Radiohead, the way it does the stuttering strings and just the specific drum pattern that it used. I like it a lot. Not only that, but the same cinematographer that they used for Licorice Pizza, who for the longest time was Paul Thomas Anderson's lighting technician, also returns for the cinematography, and he just does a phenomenal job. Just a really great job at just handling all the shots, especially when it came down to handling this old film type called VistaVision. So if you're not aware, VistaVision is this old type of, I think it's 70 millimeter film that is just something about the width and everything. I don't know all the details. You could probably find an article that explains it to you. But they didn't use VistaVision for a very long time until The Brutalist, and now it's here, and it's just phenomenal to see Michael Bauman just handle this old film style just incredibly well. Whether it's the riot in Backton Cross, whether it's the chase scene, whether it's just the school dance, it's just so immaculately well handled. as well as the editing from veteran Paul Thomas Anderson collaborator Andy Jorgensen. Just a phenomenal eye when it comes to just knowing when to cut to certain cameras and just when to just leave the camera on a certain character as Paul Thomas Anderson would want. So to close out this review, I actually want to mention the fact that in addition to a fantastic score, a lot of just fantastic needle drops that Paul Thomas Anderson is best known for is also in this movie as well. There's of course the cut to post time skip with Dirty Work from Steely Dan. And there's the one song where Bob is escaping the hospital. I need to figure out what song that is. I'll probably look it up and put it in the captions. But the one I want to talk to you guys the most about is at the end where Willa is going out to Oakland for a protest and it starts playing Tom Petty's American Girl. And it just puts a tear in my eye each and every time I watch it. I still get a little emotional just thinking about it. Because it's the cherry on top on what the movie is about, right? That no matter what the fascist regime, no matter what the racists and the white nationalists and all that try to tell you about immigration and black people and everything, Willa is just as American as the people that hate her. America may have a diabolical underbelly, but it also just has goodness and hope to it. And it just speaks volumes that Bob's character, instead of just continuing to shield Willa from the world, lets her just go out and experience it, because in Willa lies hope for the future. In the next generation, as always, lies hope for the future to one day be better. So overall, yeah, I loved the absolute shit and hell out of this movie. It is just so incredible, and each time I watch it, and I'm going to be watching it again tonight, it just gets better. I don't really know what Warner Brothers was thinking giving Paul Thomas Anderson $140 million to make a movie like this in this day and age. It's a huge risk, but I'm glad they take it, because it may not make their budget or break even. Hopefully it does via word of mouth and everything. But even then, something like this deserves to be made. Not just for entertainment purposes, but also just to present a perspective that needs to be presented. So One Battle After Another gets 2 thumbs up from your boy. I really love the fuck out of this movie, and catching it in 70mm is going to be very interesting, and I implore that you guys go see it ASAP. See it in IMAX if you can. Like, apparently it's already leaving, like, certain IMAX theaters, so yeah, see it in IMAX if you can. See it on, like, the best screen imaginable. But yeah, that's all I got. If you watched One Battle After Another either this past week or opening weekend, what did you think of it? Did you love One Battle After Another? Did you hate One Battle After Another? Where does this movie rank for you in Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography? And yeah, that's all I got. I'm very glad that I was able to get this recorded, and I'm actually very happy with how it turned out. And hopefully, I can get it edited in time, because I got a lot of footage to do. It's your boy Chrysalis here, signing off.